Hello and welcome to Excel with Excel. My name is Aviv, and today I'm going to be doing a basics tutorial about Excel and going over some of the basic concepts of what it is, what it can do, and why you should bother learning Excel. This is going to be the first of hopefully many videos teaching about Excel. I'm going to start obviously at the basics and go all the way through to more advanced concepts. I'm going to also try to keep these videos on the shorter side because I know how tiresome it can be to watch an hour-long video of Excel. So if you like the format and want to learn more about Excel, definitely feel free to subscribe and look out for more videos coming out hopefully soon. Let's get into it. The basic questions that I outlined at the beginning of the video that I want to cover today is what is Excel, what can it do, and why learn Excel? Starting with what is Excel, Excel is a program that comes in Microsoft's Office package, and it comes with other programs such as Word and PowerPoint. So if you know anything about Word and PowerPoint, you know that they're just programs to show information in a certain way. Word is great for documents, and PowerPoint is great for showing presentations. Excel's really no different. It's just a program to show information in a specific way. What I love about Excel is that it has a lot more capacity than the other two programs that I mentioned. So Word is really only good for documents. There's not really much you can do outside of it. And same thing with PowerPoint. If you're not making a presentation, it doesn't really necessarily have a lot of usefulness. But Excel is different. Excel, because of the format and how it's built, can really do so much more than just one thing. To define Excel further, I'd really just say that it's a program that makes spreadsheets. To define spreadsheets, I'll give you the Google definition of it, but I'll also try to explain it in a little bit more of a easy to understand way because I think the Google definition is a bit clunky. Google defines spreadsheet as an electronic document in which data is arranged in the rows and columns of a grid and can be manipulated and used in calculations. Like I said earlier, this definition is definitely a little bit clunky, so I'll break it down into more basic concepts, but I do like some of the terminology that they use because I think it really helps define the basics of Excel. So the first term that I really like that they use is grid, because that's really all Excel is. It's just a line of columns and a line of rows that make up a massive grid. If you follow my cursor to the top where it says blank workbook, you'll see that it says A, B, C at the top, and then on the left-hand side it says 1, 2, going all the way to 7. So at the top, A, B, and C, what those are just your column headers. And on the left side are your row headers. I'll get into a little bit more detail with it, but the point being is that if you follow the A and the 1, you'll actually see that it makes one square. And this is pretty much what a grid is. So A1 is one part of the grid, B1 is another part of the grid, and if you go down to A2, you'll find another square. And that's really all it is. It's just a massive grid. So that takes us to our second question. What can it do? And that's pretty tough to answer because it can do so much. That's why I get very excited about Excel, but I can also see why it gets a little bit frightening. To show you just a few examples of what you can actually do with Excel, Microsoft actually gives you templates to show you different use cases. So for example, all these different pictures here are just templates that someone created to show you what you can do with Excel. You can make a list. You can total a list, which seems like just totaling the cost of items in the list. You can track your tasks, which is more of a productivity template. You can manage your money, which is more along the lines of budgeting. You can create a credit payoff calculator to find out how much time and how much money you have to spend to pay off your credit card debts. You can even make a course manager for college. Like I said, there's not really one use for Excel. Unlike Word and unlike PowerPoint, there's just so much you can do because of the way that it's set up. Because like I said earlier, it's just a grid. And in each cell, you can put whatever data you want, which is why you have so much variety of uses. And that takes us to our third and final question. Why use Excel? Why bother learning it? And I found that it's really great in a professional setting. I've had to use it a lot in my career so far, and I've also had to use it a lot in school. Not only is it helpful and a lot of people ask you to do things on Excel, but it also saves you a lot of time. If you have to run a complicated calculation or organize information in a certain way, this is a really great and efficient way to do so. But outside of just the professional uses of it, it's also very helpful on a personal basis as well. You'll see a lot of these templates are not things that you'd use in an office, they're things you'd use at home, like making a list, tracking your tasks of what you need to accomplish, making a budget for yourself or for your family, paying off your credit cards by creating a calculator. All of these functions and all of these templates show that it can really help you organize your life and show data in a certain way that's useful to you. And that's why I think it's really important to learn it, and that's why I want to make a tutorial about how to learn it and what it is. So now that we covered the 3 basic questions, I want to actually take a deeper dive into Excel and show it to you firsthand. I know that everyone is a different type of learner. Some learn just by audio, some learn by visual, so I want to cater to both types of learners. And I think it'll be very useful to just show you Excel and show you some of the basic functionalities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Excel. What I want is a blank workbook rather than one of the templates. As I said before, all of the pictures on here are different templates that Microsoft has created for you. But if you want to start from scratch, you always want to open up a blank workbook. And so you're just going to click into blank workbook. And what that will do is open up your spreadsheet. If this is the first time you've ever opened up Excel, seen Excel, then I'm glad to be there with you. And so we're going to start taking a look at just what it looks like, what it does, start defining a few things to give you a little bit more comfortability with this screen. Because this is the basic screen of Excel. And I want you, when you open it up, to get more comfortable with the different functions in it, what everything is, what it looks like. Because right now, if I'd never seen this before, I could understand why it's so scary. There's so many buttons, there's a lot on here, you don't really know where to start. And so that's what I want to show you, just where to start. Like we talked about earlier, this is the grid. This is a column, and this is a row. All of these are the headers of the columns. So like I said, this is the A column, the B column, the C column, the D column, and these are all the rows. The 1 row, the 2nd row, the 3rd row, the 4th row. And each one of these lines up to make a cell. Now, a cell is the basics of Excel. It's where you put data in. Like I said earlier, you can either put words, you can put numbers, you can put calculations. To give you an example, I'll just write test, and this is an example of text, where you're putting in a word into the cell. If I go to the B1 cell, now I'm going to type in a number. If I go to the C1 cell, I can write a calculation, for example, 1 plus 1, and it'll show me 2. So this is really the crux of what Excel is. It's just a bunch of cells where you can put data into them. Now, I'm not going to go too much more into Excel at this time because I wanted to keep the video short. What I'll talk about in my later videos are all these menu options, these buttons that may look familiar or may look unfamiliar, and also how to start manipulating data better, and how to create your own spreadsheets. The last thing I'll leave you with is this grid is all adjustable. So if you're starting to practice on your own and starting to create your own spreadsheet, just be aware that the sizes of these columns and cells can always change to make it look better for what you're trying to do. If you go into any column and you scroll a little bit to the right between the B and the A column, for example, you'll see a line with 2 arrows pointing in opposite directions, which will allow you to change the width of that column. And same thing with the rows. If you go into the row and find that arrow or the line with 2 arrows between it and pull it down, you can change the height of the cell. Now be aware that this is going to change the height of every single cell within the first row, and it's going to change the width of every single cell in the A column. To give you an example of how this can be used to make your spreadsheet look a little bit better, we'll go back to where we first started before we changed any of the heights and widths. And for example, this number 1 is sitting in a relatively big box. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but the cell that it's in is pretty large. And you can see which cell you're looking at by going to the name box and seeing B1. And that's the one that we're looking at. So what I would do to adjust it is I would actually make the width smaller so that it looks more proportional to what's actually in it. And I could do the same thing with the other cell that has a number in it as well. This gives you an example of how you can begin to adjust your grid to make it look like what you want it to look like. That's all I'm going to talk about today for Excel. Feel free to start exploring it, getting a little bit more comfortable with Excel, and the next video is going to be a lot more in depth, but I just wanted to start with the very basics and go from there. If you liked the video, definitely feel free to throw a subscribe or a thumbs up, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this video series, and I hope that you found this information at least a little bit useful. I know it was the very basics, and you might be well beyond this point, but definitely keep along if you want to learn, because I'm going to continue on from here and just get more and more advanced as we go, and hopefully by the end you'll feel much more comfortable with Excel from where you are today. Thanks for listening.